What's up, everybody? It is Jared with Capture the Magic, and in today's video, we're going to take another look at the Epic Universe crowds in this seemingly always changing situation, as the grand opening saw very low crowds, and people were commenting on why were these crowds so low? Was this on purpose? And we talked about in another video how Disney Tourist Blog actually had a really good article, really fair-minded article about what the reason is, and it's not the fact that this park is a, quote, failure. It was a very purposeful thing by Universal limiting these early crowds. But now we're seeing, ever since the opening period there, the crowds have gone up quite a bit, as have the wait times. And we have another article from Disney Tourist Blog talking about the fact that Epic Universe is not dead anymore. And what is some of the things behind this, and how does this look going into the rest of the year? So I figured let's read through this article, get some thoughts on it, because I do enjoy Tom Bricker, who runs Disney Tourist Blog. Obviously, they have a Disney leaning, but he's very fair about his analysis when it comes to Epic Universe, and I've kind of enjoyed what he's had to say about it, so we're going to read through this here. So again, the article is Epic Universe is not dead anymore. It says, party's over, folks. The last 3 days have been the busiest ever at Epic Universe, with 10 out of 10 crowd levels and average wait times of over an hour. This provides an update on attendance, following up on an Epic Universe is dead from opening weekend article. So let's start there, as the last 3 to 4 days have been quite the contrast to the first 3 to 5 days of the newest park at Universal Orlando. Epic Universe has officially opened on May 22nd after months of previews, and its grand opening day was the slowest ever in the park's brief existence. The trend continued through Memorial Day weekend. Over the holiday, Epic Universe had a lower average wait time than Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios Florida, as well as all 4 parks at Walt Disney World. Crowd levels were 1 out of 10 at worst, with most attractions being walk-ons and having minimal waits regardless of their posted times. And we were there opening day, and it was like the shock of the day there being that like everything outside About the Ministry was a walk-on. Like it wasn't even like maybe you waited 5 minutes. It was literally, if it said 10 minutes, it was a walk-on. Curse of the Werewolf, I rode that. I literally was on that coaster with one other person, and I could have ridden that more if I wanted to. Like everything in the park was a walk-on. It was a great day. It was a great experience, but it was something that I even said then, you're not going to see this happen maybe never again. You see this park this empty outside of some sort of special event happening in Epic Universe sometime in the future maybe, but I didn't know how quickly the crowds would ramp up, but we've already seen very quickly that those trends for the opening time period are no more at this point. Our post about Epic Universe being empty was made to offer a huge kudos to Universal Orlando for choosing to have low crowds for the opening weekend of Epic Universe. We lauded that decision and rebutted the criticism among Walt Disney World fans that it proved Epic Universe was unpopular or a flop. I think anybody being objective didn't think Epic Universe was a flop or something, because again, I've said many times, the opening of this park or any new park is not going to dictate whether it's successful or a failure. I mean, it's just not enough data to go off that. This park is going to be around for decades to come, and so the opening time period was not going to, you know, if it went great, it was going to help it. If it didn't go great, it wasn't going to help it, but it wasn't going to doom the park. But I think there's just people looking at Epic Universe and trying to find any reason to nitpick it, whether that's the crowds are too low, nobody wants to be there, and now the fact that the crowds are too high, oh my gosh, they didn't account for this and this park's a mess. Like, you're just going to find people that I think are just being we'll just say they're rooting for a certain outcome regardless of what happens in the park. So it's just social media, really. It's just people wanting to be on a team or something like that and rooting for or against it in many ways. As we said at the time, the easier move would have been to sell many more tickets, take short-term profits, endure heavier crowds, and whatever else came with that. The word of mouth wouldn't have been as positive, so it would have come with a trade-off. But it was nevertheless a choice, and not due to lack of demand, unpopularity, or the result of Epic Universe being a flop. Well, perhaps we spoke too soon with our praise based on the last few days. Let's start with the look at attraction by attraction averages for Epic Universe on its busiest day thus far. About the Ministry saw over 200-minute wait. You saw Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. This one shows 150. These are average wait times, by the way. Minecart Madness about 90. Toothless and a bunch of these other attractions definitely near the hour-long range. The only thing that was under 50 minutes easily was Constellation Carousel and Bowser's Jr. Challenge, which that is, Bowser's Jr. Challenge is you need the power-up band to do that, and that one typically doesn't see much of a wait time. I don't think a lot of people really know about it. It doesn't really have a big marquee sign in Super Nintendo World, but it is a cool thing if you get a power-up band and collect the keys. It is a cool, especially for kids, it's a cool thing you can go do in there. Although May 22nd was the busiest day in Epic Universe history so far, it's not an anomaly. Here are park-wide averages since the grand opening. So May 22nd, 20 minutes. 23rd was 25 minutes. You saw 20-ish minutes till the 25th, and they saw 38 minutes, 31 minutes. And then May 27th is when you started seeing closer to an hour, then 73 minutes, 65 minutes, and 61 minutes as of yesterday when this article was written. The last 3 days have been 10 out of 10 crowd levels, and keep in mind, this is based on Epic Universe's brief history, largely consisting of paid previews when capacity was capped. The park has yet to operate without an artificial limit on ticket sales, but that cannot last forever. Speaking of which, just as with the paid previews, Universal Orlando has been significantly limiting attendance. Based on leaked ticket data, which was pulled directly from Universal's ticket sales engine, it's our understanding that current limits are roughly 1/3 of total park capacity. I've heard that as well, and having been there opening day, I can tell you for sure that the park was definitely limiting its capacity. What's interesting here is that, at least based on the leaks, nothing has materially changed in terms of capacity caps. The numbers are slightly different from opening weekend, but not materially. Depending upon the day, capacity is roughly 12,000 to 15,000 guests. As we pointed out previously, ticket sales were throttled during paid previews to similar levels, and there were some days that had significantly higher wait times. Accordingly, we attributed the difference in open weekend to ride reliability. Epic Universe enjoyed its best uptime stretch ever over Memorial Day weekend. It didn't look like a brand new park, but one that had found its operational groove and been running smoothly for years. It now appears that that was not the difference maker, at least not the primary driver. We've now heard from multiple team members who have indicated that actual ticket sales were throttled far below 12,000 to 15,000 number, with fewer than 6,000 tickets being sold for opening day and around 8,000 for subsequent days. I had heard something similar, that I had heard a number around 5,000 to 6,000 guests on opening day, which, having been there, that number actually does make a lot of sense. Much lower than what I was anticipating there. Preview day we went to, which was in May, early May. I mean, that was a very, very busy day. This was even lower crowds on opening day than it was for like the team member previews. And that day we were there, I mean, most things were, the highest wait time there was like 45 minutes. So it was kind of wild, being the lowest, wait time day was actually the grand opening of the park. So we had been in the park when it was much busier than that. So I think that number, probably makes a lot of sense. To be perfectly honest with you, I have no way of assessing the veracity of this rumor. It's somewhat surprising to me that this would be communicated to team members, but I admittedly don't know how this works at Universal Orlando. It's entirely possible managers have this data, mention it to frontline team members, and that's how it's gotten out. It could have been a bad game of telephone, but it's coming from multiple sources. This nevertheless passes the smell test for me, because I've talked to people who have confirmed that the ticket data is legitimate. I have heard that as well. And there's really no other way to reconcile the roller coaster wait times. It does seem like ticket sales were throttled Memorial Day weekend, and the numbers during previews and in the last few days are more accurate. It says until July 1st, 2025, when the cap increases, and we talked about from the thrill data stuff on the capacities. Regardless, take all of this with a grain of salt. During previews, there were some really rough days between breakdowns and weather delays, which closed 7 of the 11 rides. There were occasions when only 1 to 2 rides were operational, and this had a cascading effect on crowds, and even on days attendance was heavily capped. A couple of days were so bad that Universal Orlando actually issued refunds. It was for this reason that we warned about being in Epic Universe the first time when there was an operational meltdown at higher capacity. Said it's going to be a nightmare, but keep in mind that this still hasn't happened, and there have been meltdowns, but not at higher capacities. And I think obviously in the early part of a brand new theme park, really any new thing, whether it's a hotel, a restaurant, whatever it is, you're going to have issues you're going to work through. So obviously a brand new park full of brand new attractions, there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days. And I've said many times, if you're looking to go to Epic Universe and you're on the fence kind of waiting, I would personally wait until kind of the park proves itself a bit more, has a longer stretch of reliability, and seeing how the crowds kind of react to that. I think some people have some, I'll just say this, I think some people have some unrealistic expectations about what a brand new park in terms of its operational capabilities are going to be. It's not going to run perfect. They're still going to work through these issues. And so, yeah, if you go during that time period, you go on a day like that, that is very frustrating, but it also just kind of comes with the territory, as well as like if you stay at a brand new hotel or you go to a brand new restaurant. It's kind of a very known thing that it's not going to be the best experience compared to what it may be 1 or 2 years down the road once they kind of find their groove and figure things out. Same thing goes with a new, theme park. I think this is something that a lot of people, I think, maybe just assume that because it's open, they're going to have worked through all these issues. And that's something that I've kind of warned about, it being like, they're still going to be working through these things probably months after this park opens, so it's just something to keep in mind if you're going this summer and in the early period here. Watching from afar, the last few days have had a couple of days that have looked like repeats of those really rough late previews. There have been breakdowns, weather delays, dumped queues, and reports of long lines for refunds or guest recovery on at least 2 of those 3 days. This is fascinating to me and makes me wonder if Universal's approach to opening weekend, since in fairness an approach that we praised, has already backfired. The locals saw photos of the park as a ghost town and everything but Battle to Ministry as a veritable walk-on, bought tickets as a result, and now feel like this was a bait and switch. It could also be high knowledge that theme park diehards who have had tickets for a while and believe their experience is the outlier and the opening weekend is or should be the norm. I could see a scenario where some fans specifically targeted the week after opening weekend, thinking that it would be the trick to avoiding crowds, and now feel like they're getting a raw deal. Well, you also have to keep in mind it was Memorial Day weekend as well. So a lot of times, people just tend to, if theme parks, typically holidays tend to be really, really busy, plus an opening period of a park. I do think a lot of people probably avoided it for that reason. But I do think in general, Universal probably purposely did that because they wanted to make sure, like, they weren't sure where these rides really were at. So having lower crowds there in the opening time period, if stuff does go down, you're not going to have as much negative feedback about that. And at some point, it's just inevitable that there's just going to be more crowds coming into the park, and they're still working through these issues. Like, this is kind of the scenario that I figured would happen from day one. It's just happened like, a week or so later. It would be interesting to know if Universal looked at it that way, of being like, I don't think they would have looked at it as like a bait and switch, but I think they definitely wanted positive press and a positive experience for people there on opening day and that opening weekend. I'm not going to sit there and say I think it was just to dupe people to coming in knowing that some of these things would be the case. I think a lot of it is still just working through a lot of these park operations, still trying to figure out this park. As we just saw also, I did another video on it about how Dark Universe has now been added to the early park access for Universal Hotel guests. So I think they're still trying to figure out the bottlenecks, the guest flow of the park, and really where they can help maybe alleviate some of these wait times. So I think a lot of this is a very fluid situation and not necessarily a purposeful sort of bait and switch situation. But I could see if you looked at an opening weekend, like, I talked about my review, how the crowd, it was just empty. But I even said then, like, I don't know how long this is going to last. I don't think it's going to be very long. So some people could have saw that and thought, hey, let's go now where the crowds are really low. And then obviously they run into a situation where the crowds aren't low. That's obviously a risk you're going to run. Even if you look at a crowd calendar for any park, I've been days in theme parks where it says a 1 out of 10 and you get to the park and you're like, oh, wow, this is like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. So it's not a perfect science, even if you're trying to guess this about trends. It just kind of comes with theme parks. Obviously, breakdowns of a majority of the theme park closing due to weather is one thing. If I got dumped from multiple queues or couldn't do anything, I might seek guest recovery too. I agree. Yeah, if you paid, especially what they're charging to go to Epic Universe, it's not cheap. If you're paying almost $200 to go to this park and you only got to do a couple of things, I don't feel like you got your money's worth, and some of that could be out of Universal's control. But at the same time, you paid for a service or a product you really didn't get to experience. Like, I understand it. I don't have any, I don't think anything badly of people that only got to do a couple of things. Rides were down all day that go to guest recovery, guest services just to see what they can do. A lot of times they're doing rain checks or, rain checks with an express pass or just giving your money back. I don't blame them one bit. I would probably do the same thing. But some of what we've observed just looks like frustration about hour-plus waits, as there have been photos of long lines for refunds on days that were operationally efficient for the most part. Frankly, long lines kind of come with the territory of a brand new theme park, or as does a little bit of unreliability and unpredictability. Well, and there's something too of, I'll just put it this way. I've been in a park before where something happens and you start hearing word of mouth, whether that's now social media, whatever it is, that, hey, if you go to guest recovery, like, they're giving out refunds or they're giving you something. And once, that can easily kind of get out in a theme park, people telling other people and going to guest services just to see what they can get. So if you're at a brand new park, things were operational, you just had long wait times, that kind of comes with the territory. But I do think some people maybe are going on a day that didn't have big ride breakdowns, essentially just to see what they can get. I do think there is a segment of that out there that does that, and it's just kind of comes with the territory there. I don't know what Universal did with that situation. Like if everything was running and they just had high wait times, I don't know if Universal's handing out refunds. I would assume not. They might, and give them some maybe express pass for a day or something along those lines. I'm not really sure, but I think there is a part of that. And in terms of also just, I think people having unrealistic expectations, perhaps from the opening weekend, seeing how low those wait times were. And then when they go just a week later and they're much higher, and that's already a built-in frustration. So I can understand it from that perspective of feeling like you're a bait, like a bait and switch went on. But I can also see it from a scenario where word gets around in the park, hey, they're having out refunds. People get in line just to see what they can get. I have been in a park where I have seen that happen. I've seen other people tell people, oh, if you go to guest relations, they'll do X, Y, and Z. So that is probably going to play part of that, I would assume, but obviously that's just me speculating. To be abundantly clear, I'm watching this from afar via wait time, social media, and reports from a couple of friends on the ground. So this could be erroneous assessment. I'm also not excusing Universal for their ham-fisted operations, much of which have been quite guest-unfriendly since the start of paid previews. During that, I maintain that the technical rehearsal excuse goes out the window as soon as you start charging full price. All of that sentiment still stands. It's guests being upset about regular old high wait times for a brand new park that I find troubling. I agree with what he's saying there. I think I may still do a video on this. People were looking at the previews, and there was a lot of frustration there about, some people were getting very negative about the state of the park during the previews. Even though this park was in technical rehearsal, it's understood that things are going to go down. And that coupled with, I think there is this unrealistic expectation from some people about where a brand new park is going to be operationally, and just assuming because these rides are up that they should already be tested and ready to go and there shouldn't be any breakdowns. If you've been around theme parks, you'll know that that's not a realistic scenario. Like, you're still going to work through issues weeks, months later, as you're still, like, basically the way it goes is, ride manufacturer comes in, they build the ride, they put it in, and they're like, here you go. And you kind of, park operations has to kind of figure that out. So they're not going to get it figured out within just a couple of months. But at the same time, what Universal was charging for the previews, I do think was too high given the state of the park was in. I think a lot of that was obviously wanting to make money and relying on the hype and anticipation of this park. I think if they had priced the previews lower, people wouldn't have been as harsh on the previews. But when you're spending, just for a preview ticket, basically what you would pay for a full day ticket at a normal theme park, a park that's already been open, you expect a certain level of experience. And if you're not getting that for that price, and especially if, like, you're a family of four, I talked about before, my brother was looking to go to previews for his family. It was going to cost almost $800, everything included, to go to Epic Universe for a preview period. And so if you spent $800 and you basically things were down all day, you didn't get to do anything, like, I wouldn't be happy either. So I think it's a little bit of people not having realistic expectations, but also Universal overpricing the previews that led to kind of the sentiment around the previews, and a lot of it toward the end of it was starting to get very, like, harsh and kind of negative, which, I understand. But just being upset that you're in long lines, I mean, this is something about theme parks. It's just a thing. This is why Express Pass exists. This is why Disney has lightning lanes. They used to have fast passes. Like, there are lines in theme parks is a thing in a very popular theme park, and they sell products to try and get around these long wait times because obviously that's not something people want to do. So I do think people just basically complaining about being in long lines, trying to get a refund there is not a great look, I will just say. He talks about, wanting to write an article about when to visit, but basically not knowing, putting a pause on that because there still isn't enough data here to really give any sort of, like, when should I visit advice. I mean, we've already seen, we've got the preview mode, we saw the opening weekend, and now we're seeing these crowds. Like, there's just not enough there to make any realistic determination on when is the best time to visit. Anyone relying on crowd calendars or telling you the best times to go, I just don't think there's enough data at all to make any realistic, determination. So if someone's telling you they know the best time to visit, while they may be operating in good faith, I don't think there's enough data there at all to make any sort of determinations on that. The bad news is that none of this is going away in the short term or medium term. Hard as it might be to believe, given the above wait times, capacity is still being capped at a very low level. As we've written elsewhere, Epic Universe will have a capacity comparable to Disney's Hollywood Studios when operating at full tilt. efficiency, reliability, ticket sales, etc. Despite that, we believe Epic Universe has not been designed in such a manner to absorb crowds. Its layout is not conducive to crowd flow, and there are certain areas that will be slammed. Super Nintendo World, it comes to mind, which I agree there, while others feel empty, talking about Celestial Park, and there simply isn't enough that's sheltered. There are baked-in issues that will presumably necessitate expansion or changes sooner rather than later. You can have an argument about the crowd flow, given that there's no way. I mean, most theme parks you kind of can interconnect to other lands, and these portals have individual entry and exit points out of there. Again, it's hard to know at this point. I still think it's early on to get a lot of assumptions about that, given the ride reliability and things of that nature. While there will be further improvements as the park finds its operational footing and improves efficiency, what we've seen some of the last few days isn't that far off from a regular operational environment. It's not like Universal can improve the weather or make it so outdoor rides don't close during storms. Complex attractions are going to have downtime even years from now. It's also worth reiterating that crowd levels are relative, not absolute, meaning that the 10 out of 10 crowd levels of the last few days probably won't be 10 out of 10s once Universal stops capping capacity for Epic Universe and organic demand rises. The current 65 to 73 minute wait times might end up looking downright blissful once Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Eve rolls around. Today's 10 out of 10 crowd levels could be readjusted to 7 out of 10 or below. There's a very real possibility that Epic Universe takes the crown of most crowded theme park in the world come 2026, a title based on average wait times and not raw attendance, which will definitely not even be top 10 globally. Or perhaps wait times won't rise that much as demand self-regulates. Just as quickly as word of mouth spread about how awesome the opening weekend experience was at Epic Universe, so too can it spread about much worse it's gotten. It's really fascinating to watch how this continues to unfold, as something tells me the roller coaster ride of 110 to 10 out of 10 crowds at Epic Universe is only just starting. Yeah, I mean, I said even in the opening weekend, I think you were never going to see the park like that again, as I think there's way too much hype and anticipation and excitement around this park for that reason. And, obviously, like, a brand new theme park opening in the social media era, there's a lot more scrutiny on a brand new park than there was 20 some odd years ago when we saw like Animal Kingdom and Islands of Adventure open, as typically you would just see things written in the press and word of mouth about how things went. So every little, thing about Epic Universe is just under a magnifying glass. If the wait times are low, everyone sees it and maybe they make decisions based off that. People see high wait times and then they think, oh my gosh, it's going to be crazy. They make decisions based off that. So it's a lot of this is just this park being open in this time period is just going to be scrutinized more. Obviously, YouTube plays into this, channels like mine and others talking about this. Now, I didn't know how long it would take for crowds to come in. Obviously, it didn't take very long. And obviously, Universal is limiting the ticket sales. I think they've used the term before, but using friction. Tickets were available for the opening day. It's just the fact they weren't the easiest to get. And I think Universal, instead of doing some sort of park reservation system or some other way in which to manage the crowds, they were just going off of ticket sales, either capping it as a hard cap or just basically making it like you could get tickets, but it's difficult to do to try and keep the attendance down in this early period. Now, it is going to be very interesting. Again, they obviously want a lot of people in this park because that is how you're going to make more money. And they spent $6 to $8 billion on this park, so they want to make their money back. So Universal has a lot of motivation to obviously get this park running very efficiently and try and get these wait times down whenever the park's not even near what the full capacity will be. Now, I personally, looking at the wait times as of the last few days, I couldn't imagine what this park would look like at 30, 40,000 guests at this point. I mean, the wait times would be insane. So whether Universal thinks that they can fix this issue with, more things to do in the park, which they could throw up things that, maybe short-term things or more character interactions, more streetmosphere, for more, things for more people to do, whether that's also the ride efficiency. Obviously, that is part of it, is not only the ride efficiency itself, but maybe the way in which they run things in this park. Now, having long wait times is also a thing that kind of, I think Disney World likes this, and I think Universal probably likes it to some degree because it shows demand. So if you're looking at wait times, you obviously, a lot of people want to come to this park, and obviously on some level, they can sell more express passes with this. So wait times are one of those things where obviously you want to find sort of a happy medium there. You want them to be too high because people are just mad the entire time, but you don't want them to be too low because then you have the perception that there's no demand there. So finding that happy medium there of where to have the crowd levels is always probably some sort of almost scientific method of figuring out which way to do that. But But I mean, ultimately, this is a good problem to have in terms of you have a lot of people that want to come to your park. You have a very high demand product that people want to experience, and trying to figure out the best way to service that demand is a good position to be in. As many times in business, there's good problems and there's bad problems. A bad problem is you have a brand new park that you can't get people to go to. That is a bad problem. You want to up the attendance, you want to make more money. A good problem to have is you have perhaps more demand than you can handle, and trying to figure out the best way to provide a service for the people that want to experience your product. Again, it's a problem. If you don't solve either one of those problems, it is bad for your company, but that is a good problem to have in terms of the demand there. But it's still an issue you need to figure out, because maybe somebody comes, they save the money, they go one time, and if they don't have a good experience, they may not want to come back, or they may wait a long time, or if enough people hear about the experience is not good, it makes a lot of people obviously more hesitant to go and maybe wait a little longer. So Universal has a lot of motivation to obviously figure out this issue. Now, whether that is this the way this park is laid out, I don't know about that. Obviously, they talk about this article about how the park flow could be part of the problem here, or just in terms of the efficiency, the operations of the rides and other aspects of the park being a thing of that. I do think, I tend to think at some level it's the efficiency of the park, because if you have this thing running at full efficiency and with the crowds coming in, I would imagine they've run the calculations to think that they can handle the crowds for that, as again, they're not brand new to theme parks. If this was a brand new theme park company that had never built a theme park before, I would probably be more concerned about it. But you're talking about Disney and Universal, like they know how to run theme parks. They know how crowds flow. So I don't think they've designed a park that just cannot handle a massive amount of people. Because again, you don't spend $6 to $8 billion on a new theme park assuming that you can't have max capacity crowds, which they obviously want to make money, get return on their investment, and continue to grow Universal in the Orlando area. So I think when you put it in perspective like that, these are probably very short-term problems. Again, problems that you need to figure out, but good problems to have. And I do think they will get there. I just don't think it's going to be within this month, maybe even, maybe it's even this year. Who knows what that timetable is to figure this out. And I think they're just going to continue to try things here and there while they're getting their efficiency better, getting these rides running better, to try and find a good place where they can handle more of these crowds. So I do think they'll get there. I think there's going to be some headaches, stub their toe on the corner of the coffee table from time to time. Like, you're going to have some issues here, but ultimately I do think they will figure this out. And then more than likely in a couple of years, we'll look back and think, oh yeah, remember whenever the park was at 15,000 guests and you had an hour and a half wait times for everything? Like, that was crazy. I think it'll be like that. And also, there are expansions that are going to be coming. I've heard very strong rumors, nothing substantial that I can really talk about, that they're already either looking at adding or already in the planning process of adding expansions to Epic Universe for this very reason, to help with these crowds and the park flow, as well as adding things to the existing Universal Studios Islands of Adventure properties. But I think as of now and going into this summer and in the future, it's going to be a busy park. But I think it goes without saying, Epic Universe obviously is not dead anymore, and we'll have to keep an eye on the situation, how this looks going into the rest of the summer and this year, and what this park's looking like as they get more efficient and running this park from a day-to-day basis. But either way, that is going to be it, though, for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about all this? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.